Everybody can take their seats. We're going to get started in probably less than a minute here. Okay. I'd like to call to order the Township of Concord's Council regular meeting for Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. First part of our agenda is recognition and announcements. Dana, I think you have a proclamation regarding township centenarians.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So tonight we would like to recognize Anita Dorenzo, Dot Kilbane, Teresa Minford, Lois Schaefer, and Mary Travia as Concord Township centenarians. Whereas longevity of life is a blessing for an individual and for a community which benefits from the knowledge, creativity, and experience this individual brings to all. And whereas the Township of Concord recognizes with respect and admiration the contribution of senior citizens to our community. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of Concord Township does hereby honor Ms. Dorenzo, Ms. Calbane, Ms. Minford, Ms. Schaefer, and tonight Ms. Mary Travia, who's present in our audience here, for their lifelong prosperity and wishes them many more happy years. A little bit about Mary. She was born on November 2nd, 1924, and raised in Southwest Philadelphia, having 3 brothers and 1 sister. Growing up, Mary loved the fact that she lived only a half a block from Our Lady of Loretto Church. As a kid, she did solidarity there and went to dances and later got married in that same church. She worked as a seamstress in downtown Philadelphia before marrying Thomas Travia, who lived two doors away from her growing up. Mary was married to Thomas for 57 years, having 6 children that they raised in Gradyville. Mary assisted Thomas by being his bookkeeper for Thomas's machine tool business. Mary is blessed with 11 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. She is actively involved in the Fox Hill Farm community, playing mahjong, bocce, and being an active member at St. Thomas the Apostle Church. Mary's secret to longevity is a good attitude and a great social life with family and friends. And that's a form of his emotion, please.
That is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations to all. Mary. Mary, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to come down and get a picture with you, if you don't mind.
Why don't you guys come down?
God bless her. She looks good. She walks around better than I do. Okay. Okay, we're going to continue on with the program. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks, everybody.
We have another proclamation. Mr. Crossan, you want to handle that? Park and Recreation Month?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to read this proclamation that whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Concord Township Council, Delaware County, understands the importance of parks and recreation in our community and has preserved over 300 acres of open space for our residents to enjoy. Whereas our parks, open spaces, trails, and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities and promotes active lifestyles. And whereas our parks and recreational opportunities are vitally important to establishing and maintaining a wonderful quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our municipality and region. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Concord Township Council does hereby proclaim July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month and recognizes the outstanding work led by our Township Park and Recreation Director, our staff, and Park and Recreation Board members, and encourages our residents to visit our beautiful parks and to take advantage of our many recreational opportunities. Mr. President, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Gillespie, I think you have a proclamation regarding the time capsule at the AME Church.
Yes, I do. This is a proclamation recognizing the AME time capsule burial and plan to discover. Whereas on June 19, 2024, Concord Township held an event at the township's African Methodist Episcopal AME Church in recognition of Juneteenth and for a burial ceremony of a time capsule awarded to the township by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. And whereas the award of the time capsule by PHMC was given to the township in honor of our community initiative to preserve and restore this important church representing African American history in Concord Township. And whereas the township placed in the time capsule important historical items, photographs, programs, speeches, presentations, news articles, and a thumb drive containing those materials to preserve the historical importance of the AME Church for future generations to discover. And whereas, as part of the registration of our time capsule being buried, the township is placing a placard over its location at the church and is recording its GPS coordinates in township files in order to ensure a future council can rediscover it in the year 2050 with a reopening ceremony. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Concord Township Council does hereby acknowledge and recognize the importance of the burial ceremony of the time capsule at the AME Church on June 19, 2024, to ensure a future council's successful reopening ceremony in the year 2050 in order to preserve this important township history. That's in the form of a motion, I would suppose, yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
John, does that mean you'll be here in 2050?
That means I will not be here in 2050, no. I will be well over 100 years old by then.
Well, before you get to 100, we'll give you flowers. too. Anyway.
Okay.
All right, upcoming meeting and events. We had scheduled for this evening a conditional use hearing for Taco Bell. That hearing has been canceled. The applicant is withdrawing his application. We're waiting for the final paperwork, if I'm understand correctly. Amanda? Yes. Okay. July 8th, the Planning Commission agenda meeting. July 10th, the Historical Commission meeting. July 11th, the Patriotic Pet Parade and Ice Cream Social at 6 p.m. I guess that's at the Smithbridge Park. Also on July 14th, the pie baking contest at 1 p.m. and that is at? Same spot?
Smithbridge
Okay,
Park at the
okay.
Pavilion.
July 15th, Planning Commission meeting. July 17th, Zoning Hearing Board. July 25th, concert in the park, kids concert 7 p.m. And if needed, on July 30, a council agenda meeting. We'll move into the monthly reports. Finance report, Dana, I think you have a quarterly report to present.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The township's auditors are currently financing the audited full financial and GASB 34 statements. The annual audit presentation is scheduled for council's August meeting. Year-to-date Act 511 tax revenue is down compared to the same time last year. Township is on track to meet its budgeted operating expenditures. The township is currently working with our insurance company to cover repairs to the township building's roof due to storm damage. The estimated repairs needed is approximately $230,000. Current year-to-date real estate collections equates to 96% of the total budgeted revenues. Year-to-date collections are consistent with prior year. For the expenditures, Township Public Works Department and Facilities Management continue to work effortlessly to maintain township buildings, property, and equipment. At this time, current year-to-date expenditures relating to building and property maintenance are in excess of anticipated budgeted expenditures. Numerous interior and exterior repairs have been needed throughout the township buildings. Expectations at the repairs and the maintenance performed to the date will help reduce ongoing maintenance for the remainder of the year, and at year-end, expenditures should be more closely in line with budgeted expectations. We have 8 ARPA projects where the year-to-date cost is $371,666, and we have 5 grant-funded capital projects where we have received $604,350 year-to-date. And in the report is a progress report of current capital projects. Thank you.
Public safety, Vanita.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. Based on our fire marshal's highlights for the month of June, we had 3 fire incidents, 1 structure, 1 vehicle, and 1 brushwood fire. For non-fire incidents, we had 5 motor vehicle accidents, related incidents, and 9 accidental alarms. Generally, we had close to 50% of the incidents in comparison to the incidents from last year. For bringing them down, I do appreciate our residents' efforts in helping and thinking safety and proactively taking precautionary measures. While we are looking forward to July 4th long weekend, I want to remind you all to please be safe with all outdoor activities and follow all safety guidelines and protocols related to pools, backyard parties, and cookouts. I do want to bring your attention to some of the helpful information that was provided to us by Pennsylvania State Police to combat crime. Please be safe. Some of the tips that they provided for home burglary prevention were lock all outside doors, windows, garage, shed doors, etc. Install specialty locks for sliding glass doors and deadbolts for all outside doors. Make the house look occupied. Arrange for mail pickup. If you're away, have lighting inside at night using a timer. Keep your house well lit around outside. Add motion sensor lighting, security alarms, of course, use them. Break down packages of any newly purchased valuables before disposing them off. Safe should be bolted down. And buddy system, have your trusted neighbor check on your home when you're away for the long weekend. After meeting with advocates, Pennsylvania State Police unveils informational card for people with autism. Informed by conversations with individuals with autism, Pennsylvania State Police has created a card that can be carried by people with autism and presented during any encounter with law enforcement to ensure that the interaction is as safe and productive as possible. The Pennsylvania State Police has officially started to distribute an informational card that should be carried by people with autism and presented during any encounter with police. There will be more information shared about it on our social media, so please keep an eye. If you do know someone with autism, please keep them informed. They will be the cards looking like this. We don't have the copies yet from the state police. Once we have some, we will provide them also. Thank you.
Open Space, Trails, and Recreation, Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Mr. President. Lots of activities happening this month in June and throughout the summer. Just a few highlights. Our Birdtown Committee has been meeting and are planning several new educational Birds of Concord Township signs that will be going in all of our parks, highlighting different birds that you'll see around our parks. We had a drive-in movie with E.T. a few weeks ago at Bush Hill Farm. Over 40 families came out. We had 85 runners and dozens of families at the Race for the Watershed to support the New England Grist Mill, and over $9,000 was raised for watershed preservation. As John mentioned earlier, we had a Juneteenth ceremony and time capsule burial just a couple of weeks ago. The concert in the park that we had, Chico's Vibe, we had almost 300 people come out to hear that concert, which is fantastic to see. We did something new this year with Shakespeare in the park, and also an inaugural pickleball social where all 12 pickleball courts were filled, as they typically are, but they were filled even more this past weekend. I would encourage everyone to come out to the pie baking contest next Sunday. That is always an outstanding event, and you get to taste the pies, and I think it's some great recipes to take home. But one thing I would like to close with in this report is an email that we got from one of our residents regarding a piece of equipment that was recently installed at our township playground. It says, "Good morning. I was hoping that you could pass along my immense gratitude for setting up a picture communication symbols board at the playground in your township park. Our nonverbal autistic son usually uses a tablet to communicate, but that can be tough during playtime at a playground. On our trip to the park yesterday, he took right to the board and used it to let us know that he wanted me to push him on the merry-go-round. I really appreciate that someone customized this board with icons and pictures of the specific available equipment in the playground. It was such a cool experience to communicate with him throughout playtime. Thanks for everything you do to support kiddos like mine." Mr. Aaron Thomas, a resident here in Concord. And so I'd like to thank Steve Jacobs, our Parks and Recreation Director, for recommending the installation of that board so that everyone is welcome in Concord.
Great, thank you. Sewer and Public Works, Mr. Gillespie.
Yes, the sewer operations report, 3 items I'd like to highlight. This month, we are doing DNA testing of the plant biology. This is a step that will show us not only what we have on a molecular level, it will also show us where we can make improvements in our mechanical systems. And staff performed 4 low-pressure installation inspections as well as 10 gravity sewer laterals for resale. And regarding the plant performance, both sewer plants are running within permit without any major issues. And regarding Public Works, 3 items also. Vegetation control. The staff has cut right-of-way vegetation on Trimble Road, Schoolhouse Lane, Temple Road, and Mendenhall Drive. And the dog park upgrade. This month, the parking lot at the dog park on Smithbridge Road received a seal coat to preserve the paved area and new line striping. And finally, Public Works, in coordination with Pannoni Engineering, worked to install the new 4-way stop intersection for the south entrance of Terrain on Evergreen Drive. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Colleen is not with us this evening. Her report will be made part of the record. Planning Commission, Larry.
Thank you. Concord Township Planning Commission looks to have had a rare, not so busy month of June. The Planning Commission agenda was held on June 10th, and the public meeting was canceled for June 17th. They currently have no updates on current projects and no new projects in line. Scheduled for the month, the agenda meeting is next week, July 8th, and the public meeting will be on July 15th. That's it for planning.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor, Mr. Donahue.
Yes, with respect to the matter of William Penn Corporation versus Concord Township Zoning Hearing Board, be advised that on June the 24th of this year, Judge Eckel did decree as follows. 1, the use by Penn Woods of its property is a pre-existing non-conforming use. As such, Penn Woods' request for special exception must be granted. 2, the Concord Township Zoning Hearing Board shall grant the request for a special exception to expand an existing non-conforming use without taking further testimony. 3, based on the existing record, the Concord Township Zoning Hearing Board shall establish conditions, if any, on the grant of the special exception that would be necessary to ensure the public health, safety, and welfare as it would do in a grant of any other special exception. And finally, 4, the deliberations of the Zoning Hearing Board to establish the above referenced conditions, if any, shall take place promptly so that the referral of such conditions can be made to the Delaware County Planning Commission as soon as reasonably possible, but no later than 90 days from the date of the order signed by Judge Kelly D. Eckel. Thank you.
Okay. Township Engineer, Nate.
Sure, just a few updates. First, the work on Schoolhouse is progressing. That detour is up, and the contractor is actively working on that project. Second, if you've been on Evergreen Drive, adjacent to the Concordville Town Center, a new 4-way stop with terrain at Steyer's has been installed. That'll help facilitate improved access to the Steyer's site. In the near future, probably this fall, we'll be making some additional modifications on Evergreen to make improvements for pedestrian safety as well, per some requests of the adjacent neighborhoods in Marist Grove. So keep an eye out for that. Two kind of storm sewer emergency projects. One on Spring Valley Road. That's going to be between Temple and Britton Lake Road. It will require a detour. The good news is Public Works staff are going to be able to complete that work. Right now, we're looking at late July, and we will communicate that once that detour is established, what that schedule is going to be, but probably a 3 to 4 day detour at least to get those 2 pipes replaced on Spring Valley Road. Additionally, on Andrian Road, we have a collapsing culvert and end wall. It's been deemed an emergency project due to the adjacent utilities as well as the emergency access for the Pine Valley residential neighborhood. We've gone and obtained quotes from local contractors as well as are obtaining an emergency permit from DEP, and we look to maybe use the ARPA funds for that project depending on kind of how the balances work. So we just want to alert council on that as well. That will be done by a local contractor. That scope is just a little bit outside Public Works skill set currently. And again, we'll keep everybody posted on that schedule once we get the DEP permit squared away. That's all I have.
Thank you. Amanda.
Question.
Oh, wait a minute. John has a question.
Nate, looking at the minutes from last meeting, we had a speed hump request on Spring Valley Road. You were authorized to look into that. Do you have any update for us, or just...
Yeah, I do. So myself, our traffic engineer, our Public Works met on both Spring Valley and Scott Road last Thursday, just to observe the conditions and meet with the residents. The Spring Valley in question is actually the section between 322 and Concord Road. What we're observing there is just a lot of cut-through traffic, simply to avoid the traffic light at Fellowship in 322. We talked through some scenarios with the resident. He was optimistic on those options, so we're going to talk to an adjacent property owner there. Frankly, there's like 3 houses, and look through what those options are. Could be truck restrictions, turning movement restrictions, possibly speed humps. And we're also looking at, does one-way or a cul-de-sac maybe even be an option there? So more to come, but we just want to work with the 2 or 3 residents there so that we're finding a solution that kind of works for everybody. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more clarity, maybe as early as the August meeting.
Good. Thanks for the update.
Sure. Okay. Amanda, Township Manager's report, please.
Sure. I just want to bring up one thing. So we talked previously about emergency communication, and when the representatives from the George W. Hill Correctional Facility were here, they had a conversation about them switching their emergency communications to Delco Alert, which is the county alert notification system. So we actually have prepared, Colleen had suggested it, and we have a postcard that'll be going out to every resident. It'll be in bright yellow, and it'll tell you how to connect to Township News and how to connect to Delco Alert. So you can make sure that you're signed up for Township News and Delco Alert. And in Delco Alert, you need to select Concord Township and also prison, and that'll connect you into all emergency communication that comes out of the municipality. So please pay attention to that. That should be mailed out next week.
Thank you. Anything else? Good. Citizen comment? Any comment for Jean?
comments on the Station Road sewer project. The line was completed in 2019 with construction costs of $126,000. That project was designed and approved to only provide a direct connection to one commercial property. In December 2023, the township accepted $42,000 as payment in full for the $126,000 project. The township paid exactly 2/3, or $84,000 of the construction cost, and the property owner paid 1/3, $42,000. Per section 102B of Ordinance 395, and I quote, "Township officials and employees shall not grant any special consideration, treatment, or advantage to any citizen beyond that which is available to every other citizen," unquote. So my question is, will all future citizens get the same 2/3 discount on the special purpose or construction cost associated with the connection to Concord Sewer? If not, why not?
I don't think your facts are 100% accurate, although your numbers might be. But I do think the total cost of that line, there could be other users that could be tying into that line in the future. And
So-
his proportionate share was the 42,000. And I'm not here to debate it with you, but I could get more information and get back to you on it.
Okay, so you will personally get back to me, or?
We will have
another
someone from the
conversation?
office get
Someone
back to
from
you.
the office. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I think there'll probably be some comment when we get into the school district plan. If my colleagues don't mind, we'll reserve the comments from anybody, the neighbors, until we get into the plan. But we'll continue on with the agenda. Next part of the agenda is the consent agenda. We have under the consent agenda, we're approving the council public meeting minutes of June 4th, 2024. Dana, we paid some bills this month. I think you have them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Total expenditures is $509,530.35, with June payroll of $200,891, current bills totaling $178,241, and sewer bills totaling $133,998.35.
Okay, and we are also going to be reappointing to the Historical Commission Mark Gennaro, term to expire July of 2027, and to the Park and Rec Board Mary Beth Distilio, term to expire July of 2029. There are no certificates of payment, John. I think there are a couple of financial releases or a bid to award, I'm sorry.
Yes, Township received bids on June 28th for the Spring Valley Road culvert replacement. 4 bidders had submitted bids. The low bid was from Joseph J. Danielle, LLC, and in the amount of $85,660.80. The other bids were from A.J. Jurick, Moore Construction, and DePaul and Company, Inc. So I'm reading from the letter from our engineer. Joseph Danielle, LLC, has provided references, a history of completed work, and an inventory of equipment, and we have reviewed this information. Based on this information, we recommend the project be awarded to Joseph J. Danielle, LLC, in the amount of $85,660.80.
Yes. John, Nate said he wants to embellish or clarify what you just said.
Yeah, just so everybody's clear, because I did speak to Spring Valley earlier, this is a much larger culvert, and this is going to be between Britton Lake and 202. So that'll be a separate project done by a contractor, much larger pipe, that will also require a detour that is a different detour, but we'll try to coordinate that the best we can with the contractor and Public Works. So I just want to make sure there's no confusion on that.
Thank you. All right, and there are no accepting plans for applications for review. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Amanda and/or Nate, we got the ARPA project status updates, please.
I'll just reiterate, I know Nate ran through a few of them during his report, actually. The only one that I will reiterate is the Andrian Road emergency culvert and end wall, or however, I'll let the engineer sort of say what exactly is happening. But we did receive quotes for that. We are moving forward with the emergency permit and more construction was the low bidder based on the quotes that we did for that project. So I just want to point that out as well. And yes, that project will be covered under ARPA funding.
Okay. Nate, anything to add? No? Octorara Trail update, Amanda and/or Nate.
Well, we sort of have great news. So that project was on the back burner for a second there. SEPTA stepped in and sort of had said to us that they were not going to allow any use of their portion of the property along the Octorara Trail, which threw us for a loop because we originally had support letters from them when we applied for all the grants for that trail. And this property that we're talking about, these easements have not been maintained in years. So we, luckily, thanks to Hugh, our staff and our professionals, we have been working with their professionals at SEPTA and their attorneys, and we recently received a letter based on adjustments and things that we made to the crossings and the lines that are within their property or easements, and they are willing to allow us to, at this point, move forward. And we have some agreements and things that have to do with the revocability and use of the trail that are pretty customary that we're working through at the moment. So this is extremely positive news. We have been also working with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, who is handling our grant application, of which they have promised us, if we could get through this part, full construction funding. There was a portion that we were going to be funding previously, and they are really invested in these circuit trails and our portion of the trail. This portion of the trail, to be clear with everyone, we get a lot of questions on that. This is the section that goes from 202 to Temple Road. While there are lines on plans since the 70s for circuit trails, there is nothing else that has been engineered or planned technically really done for the other portions of that line. I know there was some design work.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I would state that the next phase is anticipated to be from Temple to Concord. We have done some preliminary work and investigation east of Concord Road into Newland Gristmill, Chester Heights. Nothing's happening on that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, to be a little bit more clear.
The construction that is happening is only between 202 and Temple Road for that portion of the trail. So I just wanted to clarify that, and we're grateful to continue moving forward with SEPTA, and we're hoping that this trail, some construction can start next year at the end of 2025. Thanks.
Okay. Concord Woods Pump Station Emergency Repair Update. Amanda, you're just going to tell us where we are with that?
Sure. So a few months ago, John reported out that the pumps failed at Concord Woods Pump Station. Luckily, we were able to rent temporary pumps so that a real emergent situation has been contained. However, we are continuing through that. I'm not sure, we've talked about this previously, but supply right now on things like pumps take months to get in the door. So we have things ordered. We are working with a very well-known vendor who is also a CoStarz vendor to continue that project, which allows us to keep moving forward. We hope to have that station back up to its normal running and operation by the end of summer, early fall, based on when the pumps and control panels come in. So we are continuing to move forward. That is an expensive emergency, well over $100,000. So we're still waiting to get final costs, and we'll make sure that gets reported out to council. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Guess that was all the preliminary bouts. I guess now we're up for the main event. Resolution 28 of 2024, the preliminary final land development plan for Garner Valley School District. I see the Garner Valley team here. Does anybody want to come forward, and we'll get this started. Okay.
Good evening, Council President Pileggi, members of Township Council. My name is Michael Pupio. I represent the Garnet Valley School District here with the plan that is before you for your consideration this evening. We are here with all of the professionals and folks that are able to answer all of your questions, should you have any. Thank you kindly.
I think perhaps if we could put an overview of the plan up, I think we have one of the site plans or the aerial plan. And maybe, Mike, if somebody could just walk us through it real quick. I guess,
Yeah,
Ernie, how are you?
I'm good, President Pileggi. How are you? Just for the record, my name's Ernie Angelis. I am one of Michael's partners representing the district. We have with us our project manager, David Stewart, and if it pleases the council, he can kind of go over somewhat of an overview of what we're doing at the
I
project.
think that
and
would be a
then-
good place to
Again,
start.
okay, so,
Okay.
David.
Well, let's make sure we can get it to work. There we go. They're on the TV screens there, they're on the big screen here, and the other screen over here, so pick one that's easiest for you to see. And please get started.
Good evening. My name is Dave Stewart. I'm with T&M Associates. We are the civil engineers for the project. And as requested, I'll walk you through a brief overview of the project, and we'll be here to answer any questions
Could
that
you
you
move the
may have.
microphone maybe a little closer? There you go. to your-
That better?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. There we
Yes.
go. David Stewart again, T&M Associate Civil Engineer. I'll take you through a brief overview of the
Okay,
project.
please.
So Garden Valley School District is proposing redevelopment on the high school campus and the middle school campus. What you're seeing here is the high school campus. There's essentially 3 areas of redevelopment proposed. There's the, thank you, sir. There's the Pennington Building, there's the athletic fields, and then there is a proposed parking lot across from the existing tennis courts. At the Pennington Building, proposed is demolition of the older section of the building with the newer section to remain, approximately 25,000 square feet. Along with that would be, that is the building, along with that would be relocation of the district fleet vehicles to the Pennington Building, and then construction of a pedestrian vehicular parking lot. The fleet vehicle parking lot is shown here and here, would accommodate essentially 90 fleet vehicles. The district currently has 82, and then the parking lot that's proposed for pedestrians and the front and rear would accommodate 154 parking spaces. The Pennington Building would have 3 entryways into the building, main entry being off of the pedestrian parking lot. The fleet vehicle would have, for the transportation side of the building, an entryway there, and then the life skills section of the building would be there. And again, I did mention 3 sections or 3 different areas of the building. The areas proposed to accommodate the transportation operations, facilities, and the life skills as well within the building. Currently, the part of the property has 3 driveways going into the Pennington area. There are 4 proposed. The existing driveway that goes from Bethel toward the high school. There is an existing one here that would be demolished and relocated to here. There's an existing one that is to remain, and then there is a new driveway across from the church. Along with this, the team took into account any other projects that were happening, which includes the Smithbridge Road project, which is shown in red here. So we are proposing a paved pedestrian path to tie into that and come down Bethel Road and then turn toward the high school. That will allow the continuation of trails that are proposed for the township. Also within the fleet vehicle area, which is fenced off, would be a fueling area which is used by the district vehicles and township vehicles, a snow scraper as well, so that during winter and inclement weather, snow can be scraped off the top of the buses. Moving along to some of the other development areas, you have the athletic fields that are proposed adjacent to the existing football stadium. There are existing fields there now that would be redeveloped to accommodate baseball, softball, lacrosse, picket, and a few other sports on those fields. As noted, we are providing a pedestrian path toward the high school. Pedestrians would be able to come from whether it be the library or other areas from the township and walk over to access the fields. Currently, it's about a 25-foot difference between the fields when you're standing up top of the field now and then standing on the driveway there by the high school. So in order to maximize the space there will be retaining walls that are installed along these sides of the field. Also proposed here is a field house, which is 2-story. The bottom level will accommodate the students of the high school for athletic purposes, and the top level would be for concessions during games. And then also proposed would be a parking lot across from the tennis courts. Currently, residents within the township park there when they're using the tennis courts. That would become a formal parking lot to accommodate 111 parking spaces. Also included with this project overall would be a right turn lane off of Bethel Road on going toward the high school. That right turn lane would increase the sight distance, which anybody that's exited the high school can see now. That would be a good improvement there as well. And then a right turn lane off of the Smithbridge driveway onto Smithbridge Road. The property is currently served by public water and sewer. That will remain the same. There are above ground and underground basins proposed, stormwater-wise. There's an above ground basin proposed here, 2 underground basins proposed within the parking lots, one here and one here. There's an underground basin proposed in this area of the fields, and an above ground basin proposed here. And then as far as lighting, the only lighting that is proposed with the project is lighting of the proposed parking areas. And that is in accordance with township standards. Something else to keep in mind, the district is aware that we do have residents, we do have neighbors around us. So we are meeting the township code for landscaping. We also went above and beyond and provided additional landscaping along residents of Cobbler Lane here and along the residential property here as well. So we, in concordance with the township landscaping reviewer, we increased the landscaping as proposed in those areas. Can you go to the next slide, please? And then at the middle school, which currently houses the fleet vehicle parking lot, which is shown here, there is a storage building proposed approximately 9,000 square feet. That is to accommodate storage that occurs across district property in unclimate controlled areas. So this allows it to be within a climate control area in one centralized area. As well as that, the existing fleet vehicle will be moved to Pennington, and the fueling station would exist next to the middle school, would be relocated as well. Proposed here would be for stormwater-wise, an above-ground basin which discharges to an existing stormwater management line there, and there's only electric proposed for the building, no sanitary or water. And that's a brief overview. Let me go back. Yeah. And that's a brief overview of the project.
I know one thing that had come up, and I think it is in discussion with the Planning Commission. It's been historically done in Concord Township. The township does have an architectural review committee, and we would like to look at the elevations of all the buildings and construction to basically have input into what they look like or how they function, not so much how they function, but the appearance of the building so it's consistent with everything around there. I'm assuming if that was a condition of the approval, that would be acceptable to the school district?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
And if I may, David, I know there's, I think, 4 minor waivers that we're asking. Maybe it's worthwhile just telling the board quickly what they are.
Yes.
That would help.
There were 4 waivers that were initially requested. Waiver number 1 was from Chapter 116 Subdivision Land Development Ordinance, Section 160-22. The requirement is the preliminary subdivision and/or land development plan and all plans forming a part thereof required by this chapter shall be submitted on a clean, legible, black line paper prints, while the township will accept a maximum sheet of 30 inches by 42 inches. Please note the Recorder of Deeds, Delaware County, would not accept larger prints. Sorry, it's a long section. Upon submission of preliminary plan, landowner and developer shall authorize the township and its representatives to enter the site for the purposes of site evaluation. The preliminary plan checklist, which appears in appendices to this chapter, shall be completed and submitted as part of the preliminary plan application. The request was to not submit preliminary plan for initial approval and to submit preliminary final submission and land development plans for both preliminary and final approval.
So the waivers to upgrade from a preliminary to a final plan.
Correct.
Okay, in a nutshell, Okay.
It's a longer section. But,
Okay.
and then I think the other ones, just briefly, one is in connection with a
The right
80-foot wide right-of-way along Bethel Road.
Mhm.
The third one is
is also in regards to a sidewalk. Township requires a sidewalk width when you have parking adjacent to it. We're requesting that that width be reduced to 5 feet. In this area, can you go to slide 4 for 1 second, please? Perfect. Oop, sorry, one more back. There we go. In this area right here.
Okay.
Is that the same for the fourth waiver also? Is that where you guys don't want
Yeah, and the other
2
waiver
feet?
that was requested, and if you go to,
With the tennis courts.
is with the tennis courts, you go to the next slide.
We talked about.
Next slide, please. Thank you. We initially had asked for a waiver to not have a 2-foot grass strip between the proposed curb and the sidewalk there. That was due to the existing trees that were there. We were concerned with having that sidewalk be closer to the root system of the trees and damaging the root systems.
Okay.
So that's why we requested that waiver.
So there's a total of 4 waivers?
four.
Okay,
3 more substantive, 1 that
yeah.
preliminary final request.
Mr. Gillespie, you had some questions?
Yes, I do.
Well, at this point, are we going to at least introduce this to?
Well, I'm wondering, normally what we would do is we would read the resolution of approval into the record, and then we would open it up for discussion from the residents, unless there's anything you want to add now, and discussion among ourselves. So perhaps maybe we ought to listen now. Ma'am, if you would come up, we would need your name and address.
Hello. My name is Lisa Stratford. I live at 155 Bethel Road. My property comes to the corner of the high school property. My concern is that although the National Department of Environmental Protection does not require a special permit, for Pennsylvania, we are required to have a permit for any and all earth disturbance activity for astroturf. It is considered impervious if it's more than 1 acre in size. This permit is required. They shut down the re-turfing of a stadium in Lancaster until that particular party got this permit. Do we have this permit on file?
Nate? You guys want to answer to that?
Sorry, so we did apply for a NIPSES permit, and we did receive it from the Conservation District.
From the Conservation District,
Yes.
so Delaware County gave you the permit.
Correct.
Is that on file with the township?
Yes, Nate was included in Nate Klein and Amanda were included in the correspondence.
Okay. My other question about that, so you have the permit that's required to do the astroturf?
Correct.
Okay, but you're also asking for a variant on the sidewalk that the Planning Commission denied at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And you're looking to use that sidewalk to transport middle schoolers possibly over to the high school, but you want to make it so it's a more narrow sidewalk.
We don't want to make it narrower. We were requesting that the township code, for instance, this was a curb, you would have a 2-foot distance between the curb and the sidewalk.
Yes.
We were requesting to not have that distance due to the existing trees because we didn't want to damage them.
But the sidewalk would be the same
It
width.
would be the same width.
But the kids will be right up against the sidewalk if they're going from the middle school to the high school.
It would be an 8-foot wide sidewalk, yes. That would be up against the curb.
So for me, as a township resident, that's a concern that we're overlooking safety. I just wanted to
Thank you.
state that's a
Okay.
big issue when you're talking about teenagers.
Okay, but the width of the sidewalk is not going to be any smaller than what was originally spec'd? Correct. Right, okay. Okay,
But not the buffer for the curb for traffic. The buffer, no, just the sidewalk.
okay,
And with high school students driving.
okay. Anyone else? Have anything they want to add right now? I mean, we'll come back to it, but come on forward. No, come on.
My name is Steve Mason, 3 Cobbler Lane, and this is all pretty in pictures, but I'd like to put a little context to what's all proposed here.
Right.
Just a little bit of quick research, and this is all approximate because I haven't seen finished plans or anything, but the upper field that they're talking about, putting the crumb rubber is approximately 300 feet by 900 plus feet, 270, 300,000 square feet, 5-6 acres, plus or minus. The amount of crumb rubber that's going to be installed there, close to 1 million pounds, 200,000 tires, allowed only in an institutional zoning in Concord Township, I assume?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
No, what I'm trying to do is put context as to what's going to go on this upper field.
Right.
And it's, because it's zoned institutional, you're allowing almost 1 million pounds of ground-up tires to be placed on this upper field.
We are allowing, if we so decide to vote, we are allowing them to improve a field with this type of material.
Correct.
And they're allowed to have the field.
Correct.
We don't, I think, dictate the type of material that the field can be made of.
There's alternatives to crumb rubber.
Well, all right. Okay.
So like I said, trying to put context, just volumes, the amount of stuff, 200,000 tires, 100 feet from my property. I didn't sign up for that. I don't think that would be probably allowed in too many places in Concord Township besides the high school. I'm pretty sure that was being accurate.
If we decided as a township to redevelop these fields behind us with that same material, we would be allowed to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's the technology that's out there right now.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, good point. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's James Hunt. I live at 1 Cobbler Lane. I was trained as a scientist. I'm not an environmental scientist, but I'm trained and relatively skilled in reading scientific materials. And as some of you probably heard, there's a lot of research that's come out from the EPA, especially recently in April of this year, 2024. And one of the things that reading this that I was concerned at in part 2 of that report, there's 3 parts. In part 2, the CDC has done an analysis of the chrome rubber. It's been by all 9 manufacturers that are manufacturing it. And what the CDC has found is, of those 96 chemicals that they encountered, only about half of them have been studied. 10 of them are carcinogenic, and several of them are microplastics. Now, just in April of this year, the European Union has banned the addition of any additional microplastics to products. That includes crumb rubber fill for fields. So in Europe, this type of artificial turf is dead. It's dead in the Netherlands. It's dead in a lot of places. And FIFA, who we're going to have the World Cup here in 2026, has mandated that the players, for safety and environmental reasons, play on nothing but natural turf. So there's currently 16 fields in the Americas that are having artificial turf ripped out and replaced with natural grass turf. So the trend is, and I've seen it in New York, and I've seen it in California, and I've seen it in other places, the trend is starting to the removal of artificial turf and moving back to a natural turf. Because I heard a physician in the federal government say, you know, there is no safer material for kids to play on than natural grass. And while, you know, the school district, if they want to make the decision to put this in, you know, they know the injury rates are higher with artificial turf. I've said my piece. You know, I did a graduate internship at University of Delaware in sports medicine. I know the statistics have been high. They've been higher since the 80s on the injuries. If they want to do that, you know, I've said my piece. They want to sign off, that's fine. But the crumb rubber, the contaminant, because those fields, if you look at the elevation of the upper fields, that's the highest point in the area. If you look around, everything else is going downhill. So what I'm really concerned about is, one, the water contamination. That if we start getting carcinogens or microplastics in the water, what's the mitigation plan going to be to start providing city water?
If we read the resolution, I think we've tried to address that to the best of our ability, to put some safeguards in there to monitoring. One thing I'd like to point out, in all my years here, we've done many projects with the school district. And when I first got on the planning commission, I guess was in 94 and 95, there was a lot of tension and animosity between the school district and the township, and for whatever reason, I don't remember. Since that time, we've had a great working relationship with Garnet Valley. Concord Township is a very desirable place to live for its location, where we are in relation to things, our park and rec, or things like that. But one of the things that helps our township be so great is also the great school district that we're in, Garnet Valley School District. And I think one of the things that helps Garnet Valley is the great township they're in, is Concord Township. So whether we like it or not, we're joined together as a partnership. My understanding is from the football field, and if this project came in alone without any other land development, it wouldn't even go to the planning commission. It would go right to building permit as an ENS permit, and they could start construction. The fact, and I was here at that planning commission meeting that took 3 hours that night, and I came back and raised this concern to my colleagues on the board. Since that time, we've had a lot of discussions with the school district. In fact, I applaud them for getting a continuance last month because we were still talking about this. So I guess where I'm going with this is we've tried to put some safeguards, which I will be reading into the record shortly, as to how to test this in the future to see if something happens and what the remedies might be or what would happen next. That being said, and I'm not trying to be devil's advocate here, but if this project has come in without the fields, I mean, we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion here tonight regarding that issue. So in my mind, if they were to get up and say tonight that we're going to withdraw everything to do with the fields, they could technically come in tomorrow and get a permit. So I think the fact that we're able to have a dialogue with them to create some sort of, and I'm going to read it in a few minutes, something that we hopefully will cover this. There's everything you're saying, I don't doubt any of it, but it's not like when cell towers came out. Townships were denying them because of the radio waves. And then science came out and said you can't do that. No one has come out officially and said, no, you can't use this, or yes, you can use this.
Yeah.
But we have to put some safeguards in for groundwater and things of that nature. So hopefully,
Thank you.
when I read this, hopefully it's going to give you some level of comfort that we didn't just skirt over it and not address it at all, but we're going to try to get something out.
And thank you for attending that meeting. Your presence was noted, and I saw that you stayed for the whole time, and it was a long meeting. And,
yeah, and then,
you know, we didn't get
and
out
then nobody
until
wanted to
11
leave
o'clock.
at the end of the night, and then we all wanted to go home. But anyway,
Yeah.
it all worked out.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I think I wouldn't be having this discussion, but you know, just the surrounding, it's the runoff, it's the ground contamination, but it's also the heat that's blowing off those fields. It's that stuff's really hot during the summertime.
okay. But if we can, if everybody's okay, maybe we should read the conditions that we agreed on, and then we'll, I think procedurally, we would take a motion in a second, and then we dissect them and discuss them a little further. Is everybody in accordance with that? Any other questions on the plan other than the field? Other than the field? Yes, come on.
My name is Debbie Mason, I'm sorry, from 3 Cobbler Lane. Who's going to prevent all the runoff from the microplastics that go into the atmosphere? We're going to be breathing it in 24/7.
Ma'am, I can understand where that is a concern.
Yeah.
But there is no regulation saying we can deny this because of that. It's not there. It's not there.
Even though, like, you're worried about the environment, correct?
Yes, we are, but,
Well, these microplastics are going to migrate to all the little streams,
well,
ponds, creeks.
we're putting some safeguards in that we think will answer or protect us if something were to happen.
And
right?
Ma'am, if I could just, Dominic, if I just may
Sure.
for a second. This council did charge me, and I got quite an education with the EPA, okay? So I understand what you're saying, and partially what you're saying, you know, it is somewhat accurate. But when you're talking about microplastics, and what you're saying is true, they're being discharged.
Yes.
The majority of microplastics are being discharged by all of us driving on the roads every day. So the microplastics are primarily coming from the road surfaces and the tires from the cars that we drive on the roads being discharged into the stream. So
Well, they said that 38% come from artificial turf and the crumb rubber. And when it's UV radiation from the sun breaks it down, just regular usage from people playing on it, just regular, like the wind, the rain, everything breaks it down. And it's like 3,800 pounds of microplastics going through the environment.
And I've checked it out, and there's not one standard anywhere in the United States that prohibits the use of these fields. Well, sir, the point is not what concerns me or doesn't concern me. The point is, what can the township enforce legally? So you just can't come up with make up a standard. I'm just trying to say that the council has tried to do due diligence, and we went out of our way to try to research this as best we can. I'm just trying to tell you, you know, what the facts are.
So when it breaks down from the blades and the artificial turf and the crumb rubber that are carcinogenic, and it blows into our, you know, environment, like in our yards and our decks and stuff like that, who's going to clean that up?
If there was a federal regulation that said that could not happen, we would be able to enforce it, but we just can't enforce it. As big of a problem as it could be, we have no regulations that allow us to put that condition.
And when they get into the resolution, we've built that into the resolution. So if it comes to pass that DEP or the EPA sets the standards and there's violations, then the school district's going to have to remediate and/or remove. It's as simple as that.
That's one of the conditions.
Oh, okay. And like, how will you prevent the smell, the toxic smell? Like, we live right there. How do you prevent that?
I can't answer.
I mean, you
I
know, the
didn't- I
Biden
didn't-
administration.
I didn't know it gave off an odor.
It does, it does. But the Biden administration is now saying that you have to limit the amount of PFAS, forever chemicals, in their water. Well, it's going to leach into the groundwater.
Well,
We're on wells.
we have some provisions in there to measure that also.
Oh, you're going to start measuring the water?
Well, if I read the resolution, I think it might make more sense. Okay.
Okay. So, but if we have a problem, who do we come to? Do we go to you guys or do we go to the school?
I would think you would come to both of us. Because if it's a problem, we're going to be going to the school district.
Well, seriously, if it can be demonstrated that there is a direct correlation between school district activities and whatever you're talking, you will have a viable lawsuit against the school district.
Okay. So when I start getting all that microplastic dust on my property,
If it's a health hazard and you can
Yes.
prove it's a health hazard, then yes, you'd be able to bring that lawsuit.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Please come up.
I hope maybe I can add something constructive here. If the project that you approved...
Your name and address, please.
I'm sorry, George Schlink. I live at 159 Bethel Road. My property adjoins where that new field is going to be. If you approve a project that includes artificial surface, I would respectfully ask the township to also approve a freshwater supply to service the neighborhood families that rely on wells and wells only for their fresh water. I know for myself and for many families, my well is the only source of water that I have. There's evidence that perhaps some of these carcinogenic materials could migrate into the groundwater. So I would respectfully ask that simultaneous with approval of your project, that you also approve the construction and extension of the freshwater supply down Bethel Road, and so that it can supply people that rely on wells. And to be honest with you, should something happen to the groundwater and my well water is no good, I think that freshwater access ought to be simultaneously made available with the approval of the project. That's about all.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Okay. You wanted to say something else, sir?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking on the map. Valley Point Church allows high school parking. They're going to expand their parking. Obviously, there'll be more high school kids coming in and out. So there's another ingress, egress on Bethel, so now there'll be a total of 5 in that short stretch from Valley Point Church to Smithbridge Road. Currently,
Is that correct?
the church now currently allows 230 to 250 cars a day parked there and more coming. The school zone ends before the church property. There's been numerous accidents at the intersection of Valley Point's driveway and Bethel Road. Can that school zone be moved beyond?
Nate, you got that?
I know it's a state road.
Yeah, that's a comment in our review letters to
Okay.
discuss, because when that original school zone was installed, they weren't utilizing that access.
Yeah.
So our comment was, if access for school students is going to use that driveway, we need to revisit the school zone with PennDOT. PennDOT has the authority to dictate that. We do not.
Yep.
But we've asked them we want to bring that up to PennDOT.
Okay.
If PennDOT says, hey, let's move it further east, so be it. That's going to be a requirement of this project. That's addressed in my letter. I don't know if it's in a condition of approval, but it's included in my review letter.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, take your time.
Schlenk, 159 Bethel Road. I'm concerned about my well water also, but I'm concerned about the road. As you know, Nate Klein came over and was checking the road out. And as we went over to an area where there was a hole in the road, and I was showing Nate, now we've been complaining about this, and we've told the school district that Bethel Road has been unsafe for like 6 months. I fell through the asphalt in the road, and I went down 3.5 feet. And I was very lucky. I didn't break anything, but I do have soft tissue damage. PennDOT came out that night when I was in the ER, and they marked the areas that needed to be fixed. Then the next day, they were out and they filled it in with rocks, which they've done in the past. They're talking about they said 6 months from my accident, that they were going to go and take out the culverts underneath and put in bigger pipes that aren't to stop the erosion. But isn't it a shame that it had to come to that for them to do something? That's not the only spot in Bethel Road that has erosion. It's an old road, it's narrow. I'm concerned about the school children. And I think when I was down in the hole, I said to Nate, thank God it wasn't a school bus. Thank you.
Yeah, so, no, I do have an update too. So,
Do you? Good.
yeah, so PennDOT did reach out to us last week. So before we contacted them, there's actually 2 culverts south of your property.
Yes.
So south of the school district property, probably, I would call it to the bottom right of this plan past the church here. There's actually 2 culverts. So PennDOT did reach out. They have 1 culvert scheduled to be replaced, and they were coordinating a detour with us. They're hopeful of possibly doing that work before school starts.
That's good.
I use that opportunity to say, wait a minute, we've got 2 culverts here, and both are in question. I have not heard back from them, but I have the PennDOT contact. So my hope is that we're not going to go out and replace 1 culvert, close the road down, and not solve problems at the other culvert. Now, I can't, again, it's not my money, it's PennDOT. PennDOT controls Bethel Road, but they are aware, and we're doing the best we can to help facilitate that.
Well, I know they came out really quick after I went through.
And that was just a temporary stopgap,
Yes,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll continue to work on those issues down there. I've been out there with our Public Works team, and I've been in touch with PennDOT.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
My name is Kathy Cureton. I live at 212 Bethel Road, and I spent a great deal of time going over the stormwater thing that they gave to the township. And I did find in it that there was a mistake in the law that they used for the stream. They used the Clean Water Act for the Green Creek tributary 00553. And actually it comes under the Pennsylvania Clean Stream Water Act of 1937, which means that it's not a navigable stream, it's a shallow stream, it's a headwater, it's a tributary, which means that they cannot dump any water into it that they want to. And if you take a look at this, I have a map of it. Water retention basins. Those asphalt parking lots are carcinogenic. Out of them comes benzene, toluene, which are carcinogenic, and there are 16 other chemicals that are in asphalt. All that water is going to go in to our water aquifer. I'm talking about our wells. And also, any water that goes down off of the parking lot and goes towards the stream is going to go in to the stream. It's going to contaminate the stream. So I'm looking at contamination of our water. They have done research. The United States Geological Survey has been doing research on streams in the state of Michigan, and they're finding out that some of the animals in those streams are dying because of the asphalt and the chemicals. I know I gave, some of you may have read it. I also have another concern. It's the noise from the buses. Buses, when they idle, they give off 85 decibels of sound. How high is the wall going to be protecting us from the sound? Now you have an ordinance. Actually, you have two of them. You have one ordinance, which is 210-154 is performance requirements. You have number C. It says the sound pressure level of any operation shall not exceed at any point on the boundary of a non-residential district. And then it gives you, if you go and you read further, you have some requirements. If you have 40 buses or 50 buses, it's going to be 4,200 decibels if they start them up at one time. If you have 60 buses, it's going to be 5,100 decibels. If you have, I think they said 80 buses, that's going to be over 6,000 decibels. Are they going to put up a barrier so that we do not hear the noise? Or do we have to complain? I mean, those are my two major concerns. But one of mine is the water, because I have a well. I also get the runoff from the access road that comes down Bethel Road and goes into a drainage ditch. And those are my two big concerns.
Thank you.
But my thing is water and sound. Thank you.
All right. Should we take a stab at the resolution? Or did you say you had a couple of questions just regarding the plan?
Yeah, just general questions regarding the plan. With regard to all of these access points onto Bethel Road, is there any signalization being added anywhere along Bethel Road? Even temporary signalizations that's only activated during school release or?
There isn't any signalization proposed. There's
So
an
there is
existing
or is
signal
not?
at Smith Bridge and Bethel. Other than that, no. We'll be working with PennDOT on the timing for that, but other than that, there is no signalization proposed.
So no signalization at the current main school entrance on Smith
Correct.
Bridge or on Bethel?
Correct.
Do we anticipate any trouble or conflict with all of these various vehicles leaving at the same time? I mean, aren't the buses going to be leaving at the same time the kids are leaving, and everybody's going to kind of be flowing out onto the same road at different points, but at the same time?
Conflicts aren't anticipated. If you look at the current logistics of the fleet vehicles, the first bus, I'll say that the first wave of buses leaves approximately at 6:50, with the rest of the buses being on the road by approximately 7:30, 7:45. So then they got to do their routes and they'll be returning approximately around 9 o'clock. And then they go back out again around 2 to start pickup at the high school at approximately 2:10, 2:15.
So I believe that Valley Point Church may use Bethel Police Department to direct traffic when the church releases, which is, to me, fewer cars than the school. So are there any plans to, while we're not doing signalization, are there any plans to utilize any form of traffic control at all?
At this point, there aren't, other than what was mentioned during the questioning as far as moving that flasher further down Bethel Road to take into account the fact that the school students do use the church's property.
Is there any reason why the church would be using someone to direct traffic, but the school would not? Why does the church believe that it's necessary and the school district does not?
Can't speculate why the church would utilize an officer to direct traffic. I mean, the high school has been there for a while. It's just transferring a bus lot from across the street to here. I believe while they're still working through the routes, the bus traffic along Bethel will likely be very similar to what it is now, except for that the starting point is now at the high school rather than middle school across the street.
Will all the bus traffic exit the property through the property onto Smith Bridge, or will some bus traffic be or will all of the bus traffic be exiting onto Bethel?
So instance, to pick up on Ernie's point, any buses that leave the middle school and come down to the intersection here to turn left or turn right will then exit to make those same movements. And buses that come down to the intersection and Current go past the high school to go down Bethel will exit and go down Bethel to make their route.
So no buses will exit by the tennis courts, enter and exit by the tennis courts?
As far as coming into the high school,
Sure, coming or going?
the current logistics of the fleet vehicles will remain the same, except as Ernie stated, we're moving the fleet vehicles across the street.
Out Smithbridge, up there.
Now, as far as they would, yeah, as far as the exiting, they'll be exiting onto they'll be exiting onto
So at this
Bethel.
point, all of the buses coming and going in the morning, the afternoon will be entering and exiting on into the main bus lot, not the Smithbridge Road.
And also
entrance.
keep in mind, any buses that do drop off the high school will have the capability to come up this back driveway, which is proposed as a connection.
Right, so then they're gonna go sort of through the new bus lot, through the site to the high school, not from Smithbridge Road by the tennis courts? Okay, so it does represent a shift even for high school drop-off then, correct? Because currently they enter and exit onto Smithbridge Road, don't they?
I believe that the buses line up off of Bethel, I believe. Yes, off of Bethel to enter the high school.
Okay. Now, in terms of, can you maybe just illuminate for everyone a little bit, like, why the decision was made to transfer the bus lot from the middle school to the Pennington site?
So one of the things in being part of the design team, listening to the district, is the concern that they have when there are multiple things happening at the high school, at the middle school. So you would have the buses that are lined up to pick up middle school students, you would have the parents that are coming up to pick up the students, you have those that are arriving for after-school activities, and those conflicts that they've noted over time at the middle school is a high concern for the district in that they want to reduce that by moving the fleet vehicles away from that area so that it increases the safety at the middle school for the middle school students and the parents as well.
As I understand it, some of those students come out, and I know Bob Sanderson's here, who's our facilities director, and there's some concerns that parents driving past with the kids coming out, you can't see them, so it's really a safety concern to move it away from the middle school and put it here on a separate lot.
Okay, and then with regard to, Amanda, can you go to the middle school site? With regard to all of this parking, which is currently housing the fleet, if the fleet is no longer housed there, is all of this parking used and will be utilized, or is this then superfluous parking for the middle school?
It's just that, it's superfluous parking.
Is there a plan to remove this parking?
Not at this point, no.
And then I believe it also could be used during athletic events.
Yeah.
Athletic events at the middle school.
I'm sorry,
Also
Extra
utilized.
can you say that again?
Extra parking.
I see. And so then is that why the decision is being made to locate the building not on where the parking is?
As far as the storage building?
Yeah, the storage building.
So the storage building is located there in order to not interrupt the parking field that's there.
Okay. Right, because I'm just looking at sort of like in the lower left corner where all those buses are parked, you know, I guess I'm just curious, like, why not put the building there?
Again, anytime, I mean, in any land development, parking is always an issue. You know, this provides access for additional parking should the district need it, and not have parking outside of district property. Anytime you can get extra parking, it's worth keeping.
Okay, thank you.
And again, the properties are well under the impervious coverage.
How about we, if everybody's okay, we'll,
I
Ms.
do-
Venita, you got one?
I do have a question. Now, those two, the existing turf that we have versus the new turf, I understand that there are different kinds of synthetic and artificial turfs. Is it going to be the same kind that we have on the existing turf?
Yeah, Hugh Katza with the LA Sport. Yes, they're going to be similar type systems. The turf is going to be more similar to what's at what used to be the tennis courts.
So the existing, well, I'm talking about the other turf that we had. Can you go back to the
Yeah, that is a 2¼ inch high
the
synthetic
football
turf.
field?
Yeah,
Okay, so this is going to be the same kind?
similar, yes. It's going to be a 2-inch turf.
So that one already has the tire crumbs? That is a
Yes,
concern for our
that
residents?
existing field is a sand rubber infill mix. And it was that way when first built by 2009 or 2006.
Okay.
Okay, and one more question.
Go ahead.
Not about the turf, but I'm assuming since these are low maintenance or no maintenance turfs, right?
Low maintenance.
So that will be savings for the school district, I'm assuming.
Yeah, compared to natural grass maintenance, it is
Have you
less
thought
costly.
about how those funds are going to be allocated? Is there any thoughts about giving it back to the residents who?
There's no significant
Yeah.
savings, Councilwoman, in terms of that. There's a significant upfront cost in the installation. The maintenance cost may be slightly less over the period of time. I would make the assumption that this is a more expensive venture than, maintaining fields over a period of time, grass fields, and the things that have to go in them, would be a more expensive venture over the lifetime of these fields than these fields would be. So I would think it would be the exact opposite, Councilwoman.
Okay. All good?
Yeah.
All right. One.
Hey, if we're
Well-
going to allow people to speak, I need you at the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, and then this will be the last one. We're going to read the resolution and try to move this forward.
But my understanding of the crumb rubber field, that has to be topped up periodically. So it's not
Okay.
exactly no maintenance or low maintenance. It's got to be topped up every couple of years.
Well, the maintenance would definitely be the responsibility of the school district, whether it was grass or the other, so
And where
whatever
does
has
that
to
crumb
happen,
rubber
has to
go?
happen. Okay.
Okay. And just one other question I had on the parking is, is my information right that we're experiencing a trend of declining enrollment in the school district? So my question is, if that's true, why do we need extra parking?
Our enrollment's stable, our facilities are, the enrollment for the school district, to the best of my knowledge, excuse me, sir, is stable. It is planned through, it is thought through. All of that has been calculated into these designs. The word superfluous parking, extra parking, yes, it's not parking that can be removed and substituted. It's parking that gets utilized when there are large events, and the change here allows that. So there's not extra parking. We're not declining in students or increasing in students to a degree that this amount of parking spaces is tremendously relevant at this point.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Resolution 28 of 2024, which is a preliminary final subdivision and land development plan for Garnet Valley School District athletic fields and buildings. It would be subject to, there are 19 conditions. The first condition references it would have to be compliant with all comments contained in the following review letters. The most recent review letters from Pannoni, from HRG, which is the Sewer Department Engineer, Thomas Committa, the Land Planner, the Fire Marshal, and the Delaware County Planning Commission. Number two, all conditions outlined in the December 21st, 2023 Notice of Decision from the Zoning Hearing Board regarding various variance approvals attached as Exhibit H, including prohibition of lights on the proposed athletic fields, prohibition of amplified sounds on the proposed athletic fields, and prohibition of field use outside of daylight hours as outlined in the Zoning Hearing Board decision, which is incorporated and attached hereto. Number three, all fencing at the bus parking area shall be black estate-style fencing or similar. Additionally, berming no less than 5 feet in height and landscaping to be installed along the Bethel Road frontage in the area as shown on the attached exhibit called the berm exhibit, subject to the approval of the township and prior to the releasing of the sign plans. Number four, all light poles and fixtures shall be black in color and full cutoff or similar to minimize light spillage. Number 5, a post-installation night observation of all lights shall be required, and reasonable adjustments and/or modifications requested by the township shall be addressed prior to the final release of financial security. Number 6, lighting and landscaping must be maintained per the recorded plan and replaced in kind as needed. Any substitutions are subject to approval by the township. Number 7, additional fencing shall be installed at the southwest corner of the site to provide an additional buffer with the adjoining residential property. Fence shall be 6 feet in height and in locations in style and color approved by the township prior to the release of the signed plans. Number 8, submission of color architectural elevations and color board materials for review and approval by council prior to the release of the signed plans. Approval of the elevations and materials for the building shall be obtained prior to the issuance of any building permits. All building improvements are to be constructed as per the approved architectural elevations, including the screening of any rooftop mechanical equipment. Note, the architectural renderings for the proposed storage facility adjacent to the middle school are explicitly not approved as currently submitted. Number 9, this has to do with surface and stormwater. Applicants shall complete and provide a surface water stormwater study for tributaries 00553 and 00554 Green Creek as approved by the township engineer to document the existing baseline conditions for the presence of 6 ppd, correct me if I'm wrong, quinone, is that correct?
Yes.
In the aforementioned tributaries. Thereafter, applicants shall conduct follow-up studies in year 1, 3, and 5 after the completion date to assess what increase, if any, in the 6 ppd levels are associated with the turf fields and/or the new bus lot. If the 6 ppd levels are unsafe pursuant to EPA and/or Pennsylvania DEP rules and regulations, and is determined by the township engineer and the school district engineer that said increase is a result of the district's turf fields and/or new bus lots, the district shall correct the condition pursuant to DEP or EPA procedures and timelines. In the event the township engineer and the district engineer cannot agree, the Court of Common Pleas in Delaware County will appoint a third engineer, basically to break the tie. Number 10, applicant further agrees that should the United States Department of Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and/or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or its agencies determine and/or make such regulations that modify, restrict, or mandate removal of tire wear artificial turf fields, applicant will comply with the same pursuant to DEP or EPA timelines and procedures. Number 11, school speed limit zones and appurtenant equipment and striping shall be reevaluated and extended in consultation with PennDOT and the township engineer. The school district shall enter into a maintenance agreement to maintain all such facilities in the area prior to the release of the signed plans. Number 12, all buses shall be parked in a manner such that backup alarms are minimized in the morning hours. That is, buses will be backed in after school so they can pull forward manner in the morning. Number 13, developer agrees to enter into a development and improvement security agreement prior to the release of the signed plans. Number 14, submission to the township of all required permits and external approvals, including but not limited to PennDOT highway occupancy permits, Pennsylvania DEP sewage facility planning module exemptions, and PA DEP NPDES permits. And number 15, plans are to be submitted in electronic format acceptable to township engineer. 16, all temporary, unpermitted signage shall be removed from all school district properties within 30 days of this resolution. Any proposed signage is subject to applicable code requirements and township permits. Number 17, an executed operation and maintenance agreement, as well as a contribution to the municipal stormwater control and best management practices operation and maintenance fund is required in the amount of $24,070. Number 18, all deeds, legal descriptions, easements, agreements are to be submitted for review and approval by the township engineer and the township solicitor prior to the release of the signed plans. Number 19, signed, sealed, surveyor certification of placement of monuments and pins shall be filed with the township prior to the recording of the signed plans. And also the granting of 4 waivers, one from 16022 requiring a separate preliminary plan submission, from 16039A18, 16939C2 requiring an 80-foot wide right-of-way width for Bethel Road, from 16042A9 requiring single parking spaces to be set back a minimum of 5 feet to prevent overhang of the sidewalk, and from 16042A11 requiring a grass strip of at least 2 feet between the curb and sidewalk. I think procedurally what we should do is ask for a motion and a second, and then I think there are some questions and discussions from my colleagues on the board. So I would ask for a motion and a second.
I'll motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions or discussion or changes or whatever?
Yeah, I have a few comments, if I may. In the preamble, it talks about 3 athletic fields. I'm trying to get my understanding of where these athletic fields are, because I do frequent the campus from time to time. And if the engineer could highlight where these 3 fields are.
Right there.
John, I've got my pointer up here. Essentially, it's one big complex here, but we've been talking about 3 fields. There's one field here, one field here, and then another field here. So when we refer to it as 3 fields, I believe that's the terminology that was being utilized.
Okay, so if you go across the driveway off of Bethel Road to the left, there's a baseball field. That's natural turf?
Correct.
Okay, and if you go over behind the football field or to the left of the football field, there's another practice field over there. That's natural turf.
Correct, and no changes are proposed for either of those sites.
Okay. What material is on the football field presently? Is it the same material that we're talking about? It is. Have there been any complaints by nearby residents about what we're hearing?
Can we mic that? I want that. You should.
To my knowledge, there haven't been any complaints as far as the existing football turf field.
Okay, so in all the proceedings, like the zoning hearing board and the planning commission, no residents have been from that neighborhood that complained about
The existing field?
the
No,
football field?
not the existing field.
What is the life of that football field material?
The turf has a warranty of 8 years. Normally, it's about a 12-year on average max, then would have to be replaced.
So how many fields are in the region? I would presume Delaware County, state of Delaware, New Jersey. I mean, are there dozens of fields like this?
Dozens, if not over, maybe around, close to 100 probably. I don't know personally, but there's sufficient amount. There's a large number of fields.
So what happens when you need to replace the field? The material, what do you do?
Material, there's a movement to recycle the material and all the turf, the backing and the fibers itself to reuse it for turf manufacturing or other applications. Because of the concerns of a couple of years ago, when the turf fields were being removed, they are just being put into landfills and stuff, and the industry has seen some changes into actually start to recycle and make some money from the recycling activity.
Yeah. So the terminology of 6-PPD, quinone, or however you pronounce that word, when I Google it, I find out that it's an organic chemical common in vehicle tires.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah.
It's also found in the roadway surface itself, in the macadam.
Okay. So do we know for a fact that what we're proposing will have that chemical?
I cannot say yes or no, negative, yes or no on that because I am not.
So may I address some of the environmental topics for a moment? I will.
Go ahead,
Thank you. I promise not to be long. it is rather simple, and it's set forth simple. I need to start out with a very brief background on a couple of things. Obviously, as you all know, the school board is governed by a 9-person elected board. You are all of their constituents. Some of them are your constituents. Like you, land planning for you and everything that you do, we're regulated by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Education. The school district just can't teach to things that they think are benefit. They have to teach within the guidelines, and they have to do those things. So this plan that's coming before you, and I say this, and I provide you with this history and a background because it is tremendously relevant, okay? We are not a private entity. We are just like you, statutorily created by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as an entity. We are a public entity. Our proceeds are derived from the same proceeds that yours are, which are local tax dollars, state tax dollars, federal, and very small amount of grants. So when a project like this is undertaken, it's undertaken not as a private developer. My firm has represented municipalities and private developers. I've represented municipalities for 31 years, and in their land planning, Collingdale Zoning Hearing Board, my first solicitorship, okay? So you're dealing with rules and regulations. When you have a private entity is dealing with profit. They're dealing with maximizing the return on everything they do. That's not what a school district does. That's not what a nonprofit does. They are different things. A plan like this is not decided by an individual. A plan like this that comes into what do we need to do for the future? How do we need to do it? They are all studies. They are all discussed at public committee meetings. They are all then further voted upon at board meetings. The dollars that are expended on topics for professionals are not, as in many private entities, just based on what is the cheapest dollar we could get. We have a different obligation, different responsibility, different fiduciary responsibility. So that when we come to an entity like this, with a plan like this, our goal is to comply. That's what, when we have to comply with our regulations, our goal is to comply. This plan has been in the works publicly for well over 2 years. We were here before you for the initial rezone. We have worked very closely with your township engineer. With regard to the environmental topic, there is not one member of the elected school board that believes for one moment that what they are proposing is harmful to the environment. Not one. Is it better for the district in terms of use? Absolutely. 100%. It is better for us to maintain and use these fields as much as possible for the students of Garnet Valley and the programs that we have that merit that. No question about it. What else as it comes to land development? And I say this very respectfully. You all know, your solicitor obviously has counseled you. When a plan is in, you cannot respectfully change the rules. It's not allowed. You can't do it. Spot zoning, spot regulating. You are not allowed. So let's talk about the two things. Number one, not one person believes that. We respect and understand the opinions that other folks have. Not one of our elected board members believe this is harmful to the environment. Number two, respectfully, you cannot regulate it. We know that, respectfully. We go through this matter. The issue of artificial turf in the planning portion of this project came up relatively late. But when it was brought up, at our board meeting, as well as the planning commission meeting, there were first topics. So let's discuss legal topics that would be asked. And to an extent, not word for word, were asked. Mike, can they regulate us? Answer: no. We comply with all of your stormwater, runoff, impervious surface, state and federal regulations. We comply. All right, well, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? They have a concern. They're in charge of the health, safety, and welfare of the community. They have a concern. From a pure legal, representing a private developer, well, let's go fight them. We'll win. At the end of this discussion, if you were to put conditions that we disagreed with, I firmly believe and counseled my client, we'd prevail at the Court of Common Pleas. That's not the best use of the tax dollars. In addition to that, as Council President Pileggi indicated, we very simply could just say, okay, you know, oh boy, this is causing too much of an issue. We're going to move to the back of the line and we'll just take the fields out, come in, get a permit, and we wouldn't even be here. Right? Those options are provided to a public client. And the response is, oh no, that's not how a partner and a member of the community would respond. We're not going to play sleight of hand. We're not going to play hide the ball. We're going to work. If the township has a concern, we have a concern. Do we agree with it? No. We don't for 1 second believe we are polluting the environment. Not one. No elected official is. No one is coming here and bringing that before. There are no governmental official reports on this topic. Not only that, as I've said 3 times now, not a person on that board believes this is harmful. And you can't regulate us. But if you have a concern, we have a concern. We have agreed, working with your government, your solicitor, your engineer, our professionals, that if we are incorrect on the chemical that we are talking about, we'll remediate it. How will we remediate it? The way the Department of Environmental Protection in Pennsylvania, when and if they pass a standard to tell us how to do it, that's how we'll do it. Or the EPA. When and if there are standards for these things and there's a problem, we're there. In legal parlance, we give up our grandfather rights. There are no, to the best of my knowledge, in the United States of America, you will be one of the first townships to place any kind of restrictions on the turf field. And I may sound with a tad bit of an edge, and I want to make sure I explain kind of why that is. Because in these past month and a half or 2 months, as I'm working back and forth with Mr. Donahue, because it is our job to worry about where that comma is. That, unfortunately, is our job, okay? But I'm thinking to myself, this school district is not opposed to the environment. And as we're pushing back on various things, you know, it's why it's so important for you to believe. We're not here pushing back against you, all right? We don't agree. That's flat out. And we're not going to agree completely with some of our neighbors, all right? But we comply. And we could say we comply and walk away, but we have not done that. We have worked with you. We have come to the agreement of what should be tested, when it should be tested, and how it should be regulated in the event we're wrong. So that is the environmental topic in a nutshell. And you know, it's very important for us and for my client, for the school district, and for those that we serve. Your children are on this. The public utilizes these things. They do not cede for one moment that these are bad for the environment. They don't. But if we're wrong, we will stand behind that pursuant to the regulations that we have. We could have done multiple different things, but that's not how nonprofit partners in the community address an issue that is of concern to a governing body such as yourself. So, depending upon what specific questions you have with the environment, all of the basins, all of the runoffs, all of those. In the large picture, the answer is we comply. On the issue, the minor waivers, they're minor. They're just minor for a plan of this size. Other than that, this plan of this size, scope, magnitude, money, complies. And you had a concern, we don't necessarily agree with it, but we stand by it. We're here, we're members of this community. That's how we would address and want to make sure that you all understand from the environmental perspective where the Garnet Valley School District is coming with regard to that topic. So
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I don't have any further questions. I think I'm okay. I would have asked a few more questions, but you eloquently answered them before I would ask them. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have no more questions.
Wait, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments from anyone on council?
Yes.
Good, John, what do you have?
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Rubio, I don't think anyone is in disagreement with anything that you said. We are all good neighbors. We are all working for the betterment of this community. We all want the best for this community and for the environment. We are specifically charged to uphold the Constitution of this Commonwealth. That is our oath. And the Constitution in the Environmental Protection Amendment does specifically say that the citizens of this Commonwealth have a right to clean water. So that is different than the charge of the school board. And that is why we are addressing this and why we're taking it seriously. And while I can appreciate that you say that no member of the school board believes, have you done any testing to verify what your belief is based on?
In the comment of the belief that what we are installing, the materials that we are providing, that we are environmentally
that's not my question.
Causing
have
the
you
issue.
done any testing?
No, why would we do any testing? That's,
Okay,
that's the baseline testing,
Correct.
Mr. Cross and,
So-
and
so I-
Councilman. And the issue is going to be, the very interesting issue is going to be is, what's the baseline say? That's going to be an interesting question.
Sure. Well, we don't, and I guess the point there is we don't know what we don't know. And nothing in this resolution or these conditions restricts or regulates your use of the turf fields. All it does is add some testing to provide some knowledge, so that if in the event some other third party regulates it, which we are not proposing regulating it, this district is not subject to any regulations from the council. All we are simply doing is, to use Ronald Reagan's terms, trust but verify. So we are trusting you, but we are verifying it with testing. And all of that testing is doing is making sure that we have data points, so that as opposed to saying now, well, the football field's been in there for so many years and we haven't had any complaints, but we also haven't done any testing and we don't really actually know anything based off of anything because we haven't looked into it. Now this is seeking to provide a common baseline that we can all look at, and in the event that some other regulatory body creates those regulations, we have something to compare it to.
But
Yes, sir, and we concur with that.
You've already agreed with that.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
And so my concern about Section 9 is that, when we talk about impact to streams and the environment, that's not something that's something that generally the impacts are cumulative. They take time. They are not something that just sort of immediately is evident, particularly when you're talking about leaching, particularly when you're talking about runoff and the effects over time. Something is not going to be immediately evident, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. Cancer may be very slow growing, so if you test for cancer in 1 year and then the next year, and then you say, well, I don't have cancer, so I'm going to stop testing, you don't. Do you stop getting a mammogram after 2 years of getting one? No, you continue to get those tests because you want to continue to verify that there aren't changes. And so my concern here is that we're doing a baseline test, and then 1 year later doing a test, then 2 years later doing a test, and 2 years later. So first of all, they're irregular intervals, and irregular intervals are not a good way to reasonably determine anything. And then we only have 3 data points in here. And my concern for the school district is that you know, there could potentially be some decision made that would require potential remediation and action and cost to the school district based off of very little data, based off of only 3 data points. And if I'm in the school district's position, I don't want to be subject to something when I only have 3 data points. I mean, you could have a fluke, you can have an outlier. And so I would propose that this data collection be annually for 10 years, because 10 years is a longer period of time than 5. You know, why 5, why 10? Perhaps both could be determined to be arbitrary, but certainly over a longer period of time, you can identify a trend. And if you have 10 data points, you can certainly see any trends, you can see any outliers, as opposed to where there's only 3. You know, if you've got 2 that say one thing and 1 that says the other, which is it? How do you know? And so I would propose that condition 9 be amended to say applicant shall conduct and submit, because I don't believe it's sufficient for the applicant to simply conduct and retain these studies for themselves, but the studies should be submitted to the township so that the township engineer can review them. I think that's a reasonable inclusion in this. And in the spirit of what this is about, but then extend it, so rather than say 1, 3, and 5, which are only 3 data points and are irregular time intervals, to just say annually for 10 years. But I offer that to my colleagues.
So what you're saying, in number 9, what we're suggesting is it would read, thereafter applicant shall conduct and submit to the township follow-up studies?
Annually for 10 years.
Okay,
after the completion date to assess.
I would think if that is not acceptable to the school
That is
district.
not. The school,
Okay.
we have.
May I ask why more
Certainly,
testing
absolutely.
isn't acceptable to prove the point? Because there's nothing I want more than for you to be right. There's nothing I want more than for you to be correct. And there's nothing I want more also for you not to be subject to something based off of such little data.
So, Councilman Crossan, it's not about whether I appreciate your rooting for my being correct on the topic, but it's not about whether I'm correct or someone else is incorrect. It's about, you know, how do we move this ball forward? How do we compromise? Our answer, we relied on working with the township solicitor, who relied on your engineer. In combination with our engineer as well as our environmental consultants, and the 135 was the baseline to test. Mr. Crossan, do I, as the legal representative, do I stand here and say I wholeheartedly endorse that because of some of the items that you've indicated? I do not, because from a legal standpoint, yes, the district is obligating itself to some things that it does not need to. However, as you indicated, trust but verify is what we are willing to participate in. You have the concern, we have the concern. Should this concern change, should there be additional problems, problems is the wrong word, should there be additional concerns, or is the school district going to ever satisfy everyone? No. I think you all know that from your service on this board, as you have plans and things that come before you. You can only do the best you can and chart the best course you can and try to do the right thing and satisfy the most people. So the school district isn't going to satisfy everyone as it moves through, but it's not going anywhere. It's been here. It has always been. It will continue to be someone. It's paying attention to your concerns as you have them now, and not telling you that you shouldn't have a right to have them. We agree that you should have a concern.
Well, then why not
because at
simply
some
do
point,
7 more tests?
At some point, we have to get to a basis as to what we commit to, and that was the agreement that we worked through with your solicitor and experts.
I think we've heard both sides. We have a motion and a second. I think the proper thing to do would be to call for a vote. All those in favor of passing the resolution?
Wait, as amended or?
As it is, as it stands.
But I moved an amendment.
You move to amend it.
I move to amend it to say to conduct and submit so that we can see these plans.
Is there a second?
We certainly, if I may interrupt, we certainly will be submitting the tests to the township.
Right.
If the word was
No,
not included in
we're
there,
done.
we're
It's up to-
certainly,
it's up
we're
to us
certainly
now. It's up to
submitting,
us now.
we're certainly
Okay.
submitting to the township.
All right. I don't see anybody seconding it, so
I'd like to amend the amendment to say test in years, if we test in the baseline, to then test in years 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So that is 5 data points.
Okay.
As opposed to 3 data
but
points.
if there is no second to that motion, then that
No,
dies.
no,
And
no.
then we would
I-
vote on the motion, on the resolution as presented.
Sure, I understand, but what I previously proposed was annual testing for 10 years.
Right.
Which is 10 tests versus the current 3 tests. And so what I'm
You're adding 7 tests.
No, but what I've just clarified is to just change it to 5. So rather than say 1, 3, and 5, do 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So that goes from 3 tests to 5 tests. So it only adds 2 tests, and yet it extends the time frame to 10 years so that we have a greater understanding. And so I submit to my colleagues the proposal that we add 2 tests, and by extending it to 5 years,
I'll
into 10
second
years.
it.
Thank you.
I'll second the 5-year.
The 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Thank you.
So I guess we take a vote, okay? All in favor of
So
voting?
as a rule of order, you
amendment.
essentially have 2 motions that have been first and seconded before this council. And I'm going to say the first one was for years 1, 3, and 5, and the second one is for years 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10.
Well,
Well, I think we have to vote on the amendment first.
we have to vote on the amendment first.
Correct.
I personally think that the 1, 3, and 5 was negotiated in good faith with the school district, and I would have to vote no to the amendment. Larry?
Agreed, I'd have to vote no also on the amendment.
Benita? Benita? Dana? We'll come back.
Yes to the amendment.
John?
No.
I'm sorry.
What did Vanita vote?
She didn't vote yet.
Oh.
I agree with John, no.
Okay. The fact that it's a 3-3 tie, in my opinion, means it's a deemed approval, because there is no action from the board. It cannot end in a tie. So therefore, there is no,
Why don't we take a 30-second, 1-minute?
I would think that would be a great idea. Can we recess for about a minute, please, so we can caucus among
I
ourselves?
think both sides should take a recess.
Certainly.
Let me make sure that's the deal.
Yes, we're going to take Betsy Bucknell tomorrow. Tonight? Oh,
Sean took the kids and down the beach.
Yeah, I don't know, it's Christmas, like, you want me to say food for, like, I'm be home like 9:30, I can't eat like a bowl of pasta at 9:30.
But don't get me wrong.
I might, yeah, I'll stop at Wallow, get some Doritos on my way home. Yeah, right.
Gotta have something, I feel like. All this money.
When they were leaving those conditions, all the residents were like, yes, we're not in the school. Super gets up and makes a big scene, and everybody's like,
So what we're going to say is the fact that it didn't pass, guys, here's what I'm thinking. The fact that it didn't pass, I'm going to call for the
You guys are the vote on the resolution as moved and seconded.
I got it. Okay, everybody. Phillies have been on for an hour already. No, they've been on for an hour. They're playing the Cubs. Cubs are a good competition. We're winning? All right. So procedurally, with the stalemate on the revised resolution, that does not pass. So I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye on the resolution as originally read. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, we can't, because we voted for the extension of the 5-year.
But
That's
no,
done.
you're a free agent now.
Right,
You
so
can
now
vote however you
it's
want.
back to
So
the
aye
original.
then, 'cause-
Aye. So
Aye.
looks like it's
Nay.
5-1. Motion passes 5-1. Good luck with your project.
And I would like to say that the fact that the school district would not agree to 2 more tests, in my opinion, is dishonorable.
Okay. Like to have a motion to adjourn? Okay,
moved.
real quick. No, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, if there is,
I'll be happy to answer the question,
go
Don.
ahead, you.
Okay, it says, the EPA set enforceable maximum contaminant levels at 4.0 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFAS individually on April 10th, 2024, through the Biden administration.
Ma'am, there is no
enforced it.
prohibition or standard set forth with respect to surface water runoff at all with respect to what we've addressed tonight. You can call the EPA, you can call the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I have done so, and it doesn't
No,
exist.
but what I'm
Okay.
saying is when
Okay.
our water gets contaminated and it goes over 4.0 parts per trillion, who's going to be responsible for it then? The school district?
If you can demonstrate that the school district's fields and parking areas are what have polluted the water, as you're speculating may happen, then you would have a direct action against the school district.
Okay, so I can test my well now, get the numbers for that, and then in like a year, test it again, and if it goes up,
I am not your lawyer. However, if you take a baseline study and then take a study 3 years from now and determine there's been a significant increase of some contaminant, and you can tie that contaminant to the school district, then you may have a cause of action.
okay, I live right behind them, and
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Thank you
Aye.
for coming out.
What a country. It's always good.